Welcome to Local Election Night Coverage 2024.
And tonight we're going to be covering the supervisors. This is the important supervisor race because, after all, since there are two people for each office for the three districts, whoever wins this is the supervisor. They're not going to be in the main election in November.
And so just for some details, you know, there's 5 districts in the area, and this time we have 3 districts that are up for re-election. So it's going to be District 2, District 4, and District 5.
Now, if you know your district, that's fantastic, but the way the map is these days, it's hard to figure out, but you can go to the county map and look for that. But hopefully you have voted, and when you voted, when you got your sheet, it told you which district you were voting within. Okay, over to the east side of town, over by the Silverado Resort, over by Union, is District 4. To the west side of town, Browns Valley, and then up to the north of there is District 2. And then American Canyon, Coombsville, that general area is District 5. Now, who do we have running this year?
Well, in District 2, it's Liz Alessio. She's currently a Napa City councilwoman, councilperson, sorry. And the other candidate for District 2 is Doris Gentry.
Exactly. Doris was a former councilwoman in the city of Napa. And then on, let's see, District 4, it is Amber Manfrey and Pete Mott. Pete Mott was on the city council for 12 years. Amber is a scientist and geographer who has never held office before, but is a 5th-generation Napan, lives up in Soda Canyon. And during some of the issues up in Soda Canyon, she's been very outspoken, and she's involved in a bunch of water projects and such in the area. And of course, in Napa, water is always an issue. And then 5. And
then we have District 5, and that's Belia Ramos. She's the only incumbent of all the candidates in these 3 district races. And Mariam Abudamas. They are running for District 5 that Ralph mentioned is for American Canyon.
Now, it's interesting because these two ran against each other last time that Belia was running, and they're both attorneys. Belia grew up in St. Helena, now I guess lives in the American Canyon. Miriam grew up in American Canyon as well, as on the city council there. So these two have really, you know, they have very interesting ideas about the way things should go, and they are quite different in their thinking, which is interesting. Because so many times, you know, in Napa, people tend to have a good idea about what we need to accomplish here. And so people, a lot of times, it's hard to find a difference between their different opinions. So basically it has to do, who do you think is going to do the best job? But these two really have 2 different approaches.
Well, and Belia is the current county supervisor, and Mariam is a council member in American Canyon right now. So
yeah, I thought it was very interesting. Barry Eberling at the Register did a great piece early on in which he interviewed all the different candidates, and he gave them basically the same questions. How would you have dealt with this? And one of the issues was the Lake Colleen vineyard. There was a project called Lake Colleen. That means the hills, right? Up in the hills, up over towards Atlas Peak. And the big issue was whether or not it was going to infringe upon the water supplies. And this was very hotly contested. And the staff for the county had said, oh, this is all proved, they've done all the necessary things, and they have the erosion plan and everything. But when it came to the supervisors, they turned it down. And this was a very big issue because they said, well, are we doing things for emotional reasons rather than for scientific reasons? But the issue that many of the council members brought up is says, no, it's not about the science. It's about what the people want. You know, what are the issues? What are the issues that the people want? You know, what's for the future? What future do we want for Napa? How do we want Napa to look in 10 years? And the big issue, of course, was the fact it was going to be encroaching possibly on the water supplies for the city of Napa. And that caused a lot of issues because 3 council people sent letters to the supervisors speaking out about this, and then later on they realized they felt they were infringing upon it, and they withdrew the letter. So it was a very hotly contested thing. So it was Barry did an excellent job on that, I think, feeling people out to how they would deal with it. You know.
Interesting.
Now, Two of the districts are not up for this time. One is District 3, which is all the way up at the northern part of the county. That's up around Calistoga. It's a lot of the valley, a lot of the agricultural part of the valley, a lot of the preserve. And the other section that's not up for this time is number 1 as well. Now, what's interesting is that Amber Manfrey is running for last time ran against Alfredo Pedrosa, who is not running this time. So this time, it's a little bit of, people, at least these people are interested. That's something I'd like to see. They know their district, they know it's important to them, they're willing to, stick to it.
I thought it was really interesting the way that all these districts were drawn. You were telling me that recently they redrew some of these boundaries for these districts. So I think sometimes people get a little confused about what district they're in if they redraw those boundaries, right?
Well, the thing that's remarkable about it is that each one because it's the county, okay, each one of them has a county area, and then they have a part of the city, right? Everyone has a part of the city and a part of the county. So they're very convoluted in some place, and especially if you go down from like Big Ranch Road over to 29, you have all these districts close together where they're all overlapping because everyone wanted to have a mix of the two different areas after all. So much of our valley is engaged in the reserve, after all, the agricultural preserve. So it's so protected. So it's funny because as a result, so many people live in the city. Whenever I have visitors come here from other areas, I'm always having to explain to them that Napa is really unique. It's almost like a European, like an Italian town where everyone lives in the town, and when you go out in the country, most people don't live there. Because of the agricultural preserve, we don't build in the county. We don't build in the valley where the agriculture is. We build everything in the city. It's one of the reasons why we have so many different kinds of housing within the city, because we have a lot of working class, and we have middle class, and we have upper middle class, all within the city. And once you go up in the valley, there's really not that many people.
And the supervisor's job is a very important thing. They have a really big budget to manage.
No, it's about, what, $680 million?
And they cover a lot of the services that we get here in Napa.
Basically, the Health and Human Services is handled by them. That's $167 million during the course of the year. $52 million goes to the Sheriff's Department. Another $18 million goes to the District Attorney. So it's a big budget, for a relatively small county, 130,000 people or so.
It's interesting how many of the candidates have run for office before. And,
yes.
You think about, the kind of determination and ideas that the people will have that are running for the office for the first time, because it's a big, big job.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting, too, that, you have both Liz Alessio and Amber Manfrey, whose families have been here for generations. And then you have Miriam Abadamos, who she grew up in American Canyon, but her family immigrated from Jerusalem. She's very much an immigrant. It's very much like the Senate race that we're having currently for the area, the local district, which is very much a primary because they have multiple candidates. But it's Christopher Calbadan, I think I'm saying it right, Jackie Edward, and Rosanna Verda Aliga. Both Christopher Calbadan and Rosanna are both from the Filipino community, right? And Jackie Edward was born in the Congo and immigrated and came here. They're all citizens. So here in this district, and it's a large district, it goes from Sonoma through Napa all the way out, I think, to the Delta. After all, I mean, it goes quite far east. Christopher Calbadan was the mayor of West Sacramento for many years. Jack Edwards is at Roner Park. She's a councilwoman there. Rosanna Verda Aliga is a councilwoman from Vallejo. So they're from all different parts. They're all immigrants, but they care enough about it to devote themselves to this at a time when we really need people to be engaged in public service.
I like the small town feel also that Napa has, because a lot of these candidates we know personally, and you see them around town, and it makes it very personal, so that you really feel like you have a vested interest in voting. And I think that's always important, and never more important than now, to have people have strong reasons to get out there and vote.
Well, also we have 3 measures going on in Napa this year, which is not it's not something that affects the whole county, but you have Measure D, which is the Howell Mountain Elementary School District, and they want to pretty much dramatically improve their local school so that they can, improve all the different services there. And it's quite a bit of money. I think $931,000 they want to sell bonds for that purpose. So it's significant. It's quite a bit of money. Up on Lake Berryessa, they have an improvement district there. They're going to be doing, I think it's $500,000 for basically improving the resort district at the same time. And then over in Yountville, they have Measure U, which is interesting. And basically, it's just they want to change their ability to change the amount of money they can vote for. It's what's called change what's called the GAN limit of how much they can approve as a board. So it's very much a technical thing, but they still have to get the permission from the township, from all their citizens to do it. It's actually one of the things I have to, whenever I deal with a lot of visitors coming in from outside the area, as many people in Napa do. And I'm always having to explain to them kind of the unique system that California has where we vote on so much. Most places in the country, they don't do that. Most places in the country, the legislature, the local Senate, they handle all this stuff.
Right,
and they
you vote
decide
for
it.
your representatives, and they
do it all.
make all the decisions for you.
Right.
So,
You know.
but we vote by committee.
Right, exactly. It's like the closest thing to a Greek democracy because we vote on everything. There's no electoral college. It's like you're one person, one vote, and it's interesting. But sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's bad, depending upon what side of the vote you were on, who you were voting for, or what proposition you were voting for.
Well, and we all voted.
Yes, we
Got your
voted, yes.
I voted
yes,
sticker.
Yes.
We hope you did
Yes.
get to the polls and vote.
And it's funny
Or drop that in the mail.
it's sometimes such a few number of votes make a difference. Such a few number. After all, when we had the bond initiative for the fixing the schools last time, it was I think a $30 million bond. I think it lost by like 57 votes. 57 votes. 57 people didn't show up and didn't vote, and so it failed. I mean, it's a little bit sometimes, So if you think does it matter if I vote? Yes, especially on these local stuff, it matters if you vote.
Absolutely. You vote, and then you have to live with it.
Yes. We have to admit that we really follow way too many politics ourselves, which I think is one of the reasons they ask us to do this, because we actually follow this stuff. We watch the news and we keep up on these things.
Well, and I have to say, we don't get enough of the local input on a regular basis. You really have to kind of search that out a little bit yourself, or live in that world all the time. We get lambasted with federal stuff and the national stuff, but it's very important to take part in the local and stay up to date on what's going on in your local area.
Like, for instance, Pete Mott, who was on the city council for 12 years, he now is on the board of the sanitation department. And this is interesting. He is actually the city of Napa's representative, because the district is large, but the city itself will have specific representatives on that board to kind of watch out for the city's interests. Even here at the television station, we have a city representative at the television station because it wants to be involved. It wants to make sure that the citizens' rights are being protected and being thought about. Is the station focused enough on the people? We do a lot of stuff for education. We broadcast things. We have the educational channel, and then we do things like all the meetings for the cities and for the county and all the different boards. We do all of that as well. But are we doing things for the citizens as well? And of course we do. But we don't want to forget them. We're a PEG station, public education government. The public comes first. Public comes first.
Well, and you said that Pete Mott was interesting. He's interesting for another reason, because he's the only man in this field of 3 districts that are have candidates vying for the positions this year. And what that, of course, sets up is the possibility that we could have an all-female supervisor board in Napa for the first time.
One of only 2 in the state.
Yeah.
And that was interesting because the city of Napa, the whole council except for the mayor, Scott Sedgley, are women, which is interesting.
Oh.
And before then, Jill Teckel had been our mayor. I think she might have been the first woman mayor in Napa, And she served 3 terms till she was term limited. Right? In the 3rd term, she actually no one even ran against her because they liked her so much, you know.
Well,
so,
and are the supervisors also term limited?
no, they're not.
Then that was the point that I wanted you to
Yes, we are
expound on.
We are one of the few cities in the Bay Area in which the supervisors are not term limited, which I think makes sense here in Napa. And I think it's because in Napa, because it's so agriculture and because we've made a real effort going back to the preserve, which was America's first agricultural preserve, that we've made an effort to think long term. We've made an effort to say, well, if we start letting the 7-Elevens in and the fast food restaurants up in the valley, or we start expanding the highways, what's the valley going to look like in 50 years? And they decided they didn't want it going in that direction.
Well, and a lot of times it takes a while to get things seen through to the fruition of the viewpoint that made the people become interested in holding these positions in the first place. So when they have the team together,
Right.
then you can really take that amount of time, whatever amount of time that needs, so that you can really take that project to its logical end.
Yeah. Well, that's very true, especially with some of these projects are very long. I think the Lake Colleen project, that was in the works for 10 years. The Mountain Ranch, which was all the way up at the end of Soda Canyon, that was a very long project. I think it was eventually rejected because it was all the way at the end of Soda Canyon. I believe it was rejected, but don't hold me to that. But it was at the end of Soda Canyon, and it was proposed in the years after the fires when the road had been shut down entirely by fires. It's a very narrow road. Another project that the Halls had worked on, they had wanted to plant a vineyard up in the hills for years. That was a 10 or 12-year project until actually finally they gave up on the project and sold the land to the land trust because they decided that it was just a better use of the land. So if you're a supervisor for an extended period of time, well, you've got your hand on the project. You're aware of it. You're informed on it. You don't have to come in and learn the whole thing initially. You have the experience. You have the cultural background.
And these supervisors are not just stewards for the people and the services that they need, but for the land and the protection of this beautiful valley that we live in.
Now, we did have people come in, just so you know, we invited all the supervisors to come into the studio and do PSAs to talk about themselves. And 4 of the 6 came in. And it's not that the other 2 didn't love us and didn't want to come in. They were just more busy beyond belief, I think to say. One of Liz Alessio didn't come in, which is funny because during the last election, I interviewed her for that. So we did extensive interviews last time, partially because during the last election when we were working on the bond, they were working on the bond, not we were, but they were working on the school bond. She was one of the big advocates for that, so we did a segment of that. And then the first time she ran, I did the PSAs with her. So we're going to look at a couple of the PSAs from our candidates. You get to take a look at them yourselves.
Great.
I'm Belia Ramos. As your Napa County Supervisor, I've been working tirelessly to make our community a safer, more vibrant place to live, work, and raise a family. Under my leadership, Napa County has become a resilient community. I prioritize emergency preparedness, fire mitigation, fire detection, and suppression. I've championed the expansion of workforce housing, childcare facilities, and funding for enhanced mental health services. I've taken on traffic congestion by advancing the construction of the Saskell Junction project and Highway 29 improvements. I'm proud to have collaborated with community members to prioritize economic development and job creation. Preserving our quality of life in Napa County is my top priority. By re-electing me, you're choosing an experienced and proven leader who understands the complexities of our county and is dedicated to addressing them with effective, forward-thinking solutions. I'm proud to have the support of our Congressman Mike Thompson, county and city leaders. I respectfully request your vote by March 5th.
As a mom to 300 foster children, 1 adopted son, 3 kids, 6 grands, and dozens of shelter dogs, I have gained strength through adversity. Guiding, leading, and growing my community is my passion. You may know me as chair of the 4th of July Parade Chocolate and Wine for Kids, Sex Trafficking Awareness, elected to the Napa City Council, weekly Napa radio show host, Talk So Kids Listen, producer, weekly Napa TV show On the Edge, and more. Like you, I love our farmers, ranchers, vineyards, and open spaces, but when a long-term project is up for approval, why is it denied? And our rural roads are embarrassing. We want you to meet our people, not our potholes. And why is our population declining while our budget goes up? No bueno. I spent decades bringing people together to find solutions. We will make Napa transparent. I can't wait to be on the county board. Choose Doris Gentry.
Hi, I'm Miriam Abadamis, and I'm running for Napa County Board of Supervisors in District 5. Napa County needs effective and professional leadership from the board, and I'm prepared to provide that. I've spent nearly my entire life in American Canyon, and I'm proud to be working every day to make our community a better place. I want to hear what you have to say, and as a member of the Board of Supervisors, I'll fight to be your voice. As someone who practices family law, I understand how strong families are the building block of a vibrant community. As a wife and mother, I know how playgrounds and schools are more than just facilities. And as a business person, I see how important good jobs are for the entire community to thrive. Napa County is an amazing place, but our county government needs to do better. Join me in my effort to bring common sense to the Board of Supervisors. I'm Miriam Abadamis, and I would appreciate your support. Go to voteformiriam.com to learn more about me and my efforts to bring real leadership to Napa County.
Hi, I'm Pete Mott. Growing up on a ranch, I remember running through the orchard as the spring bloom was getting underway and the incredible aroma of almond petals on the ground. As I grew older, I learned an important lesson based on those memories, making sure you care for and nurture the place you call home to ensure success and vitality. I applied that same lesson in my outlook on public service, leading with passion, integrity, and a commitment to protect the place we call home. After serving on the Planning Commission, City Council, and numerous boards and commissions over the years, I live by the values near and dear to my heart and hope to use those values to pursue positive change. Whether it be issues of mental health, homelessness, housing, fire prevention, roads, water, and more, I have the right combination of leadership and experience to move Napa County forward. What I hope to count on from you, the people, is your vote and support to serve as your next county supervisor. Thank you.
That was a great way to meet them. I'm sure you saw all those PSAs during the month, and they helped you make up your mind about who to cast your vote for.
So you saw Pete Mott, which I think is a very interesting person. He runs one of the local businesses. He's in really the hospitality side of the business, tourism side of the business. And it's interesting because so many of the people here, he grew up on a ranch in the area, but so many of the people here have been involved in those kinds of businesses. Mike Thompson, for instance, who of course is our long-term congressman, was actually a winery mechanic for a bunch of years. I think he worked at Benziger or Behringer, among other various places, before he ran for Congress a number of years ago. And of course, he's running this year, but I think he's a bit of a shoo-in. People do like him, and he's been doing a really good job for us.
And that's he's been a long-time advocate for us. And
yes.
So, people get comfortable with that, especially when he does a good job.
Yeah, and he shows up. He shows up. When you really need him to do things, he shows up. He's there for you. He knows the area. He knows the people. So I think, I'm trying to remember, the Senate District 3, who was the, Huffman was that Huffman who was there? Who, in District 3, State Senate District 3, I'm trying to remember he didn't run again.
No, it was, I'm sorry,
You don't remember?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
So, but it's like I said, it's going to be quite a change between Gabaldon, Elward, and Aliga, Verdure Aliga.
Right.
So, but all interesting people. Now we're coming up on 8 o'clock. That's when they start releasing the results. We'll start seeing, because they start counting very, very early. Our controller of votes, Tudor, is extremely precise about this. And in fact, typically every year, John Tudor is one of the first people. Our county is one of the first counties to submit everything to the Secretary of State. He's almost obsessed with this. I mean this in a kind way, but he just loves being very efficient, but he has a great team. I've gone in there a couple of times and done videos before the elections, especially there were times when people were worried about, are our elections secure? So we talked with James, our executive director, and said, let me go in there with a camera, and I'll follow John around with a camera, and he can tell us what he's doing. And I've done this a couple of times, and the first time I did it was very controlled, and it was very well done. And then I think before the last election, I went in to do it. And one of the things I love about being a volunteer at the station is that you get to meet everybody, and I've gotten to know John well. And I followed him around. It turns out it was right before Halloween. And everyone was in costume. And I wasn't really prepared for that. The only problem, we can't use the video again because everyone was in costume. But it was a huge amount of fun. And meanwhile, tons and tons of votes were coming in. They had all these people who, their job was bringing the votes in from the drop boxes. And all these people were arriving with the drop boxes, bags. Everyone's in costume. I'm running around with the camera trying to follow John and get a good video out of it. All handhold the camera. I can't use a tripod because there's too many people around. It still turned out to be a good video. But just to give you an idea that we really do take the elections here seriously, and your votes really are secure. One more.
Okay, so let's go over these local candidates again for these supervisor districts.
Yep.
District 2, the candidates are Liz Alessio and Doris Gentry.
Okay. Now remember, Liz is a current city council person. Doris is a former city council person.
And a businesswoman.
And a businesswoman.
Then we have District 4.
Right.
They are Amber Manfrey and Pete Mott. And we saw Pete Mott had his PSA. You could learn a lot about him. Hopefully you saw that before. He's a small business owner. And Amber Manfrey is a scientist. And they are in District 4.
District 4 is to the east side of town. It goes up into Soda Canyon. It goes around the Silverado Resort. It goes up into the hills.
And then we have District 5, Mariam Abudamus and Belia Ramos.
Yes. Okay. And Belia is the incumbent currently, the supervisor, and Mariam Abudamus is a councilwoman in American Canyon. We also want to mention that all of these wonderful PSAs were filmed by Napa Valley Television. I was just commenting about how I thought how good they looked by our team here. We do these for every election. We invite all the candidates to come in. Some years it's turned into, for the 2020, was it the 2022 election? The most recent one.
Right.
We must have had, where a lot of the townships were changing people, and we must have had a dozen or 18 people come in, and we don't charge anything for these, of course.
I just have to remind you what a great resource Napa Valley Television is. Lots of opportunities for people to learn how to produce content, and we have great technology, we have a great staff, and they do a lot of things for the community, and you should really look into finding out more about it. Maybe you want to become a member. Yeah. It's very reasonable, and there's a lot to learn.
Yeah, and the station's been around for over 40 years. We're right at the beginning of a capital funding campaign where we're going to be hoping to expand our operations to a larger building, so we can do more education, we can do more video education, computer education, and more production. We can invite more producers in.
So let's hear it for Napa Valley TV.
Yes, here.
Thank you.
So how are we doing for time? Up, 1 minute away, okay. 801? 801, they get a one released, okay.
We can have a little ticking clock.
Yes.
Now, I think it's great how we had so many options about how to vote, too.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that before. You could drop it off at the registrar's office. You could put it in the mail. There were physical places in different areas where you could drop it off at a drop box. So, we really try to make sure that everybody has an easy time of voting here. That's not, and that's one thing that we should really count our blessings, because not everybody in the country has as easy a time to vote as we do here.
It's funny, I was talking with someone the other day who is also in the tourism industry, and so they They deal with people coming in from outside the area all the time. And they say, people are always surprised that, 85% of our people in Napa vote by mail. And that actually many of the counties to the north, which are very rural, everyone votes by mail. And they were saying, how do you do that? Well, no, it's just these counties are so spread out that asking people to come into, town centers to vote is difficult, but voting by mail is very secure. I'm sure if you voted by mail, you know that everything is tracked very carefully. You can vote as early as you want, but they don't start counting the votes until Election Day. They don't start opening envelopes until Election Day, and then they go through them very fast, and it's very highly automated. And it's very interesting, too, because the system in which the computers in which this is done have no connection to the outside world. They're totally insulated from the outside world. There's no way anyone can go into the system and hack them. It's very important for the security. And they have the complete paper record, because remember, they're voting by mail. Everything starts with a paper record.
I am hitting refresh. It's 8:01, but I keep hitting refresh. We'll see if we get some results. We'll get them right to you.
Yes.
We're usually pretty quick.
Yeah, they are pretty quick, yes.
They're really on it. That whole staff there is really really well-oiled machine, so to speak.
We're so traditional in this that we actually bring our votes down to the voting office and drop them in the mail, drop them in the office there, and they give us our stickers.
First unofficial report.
Oh, really? Oh, wonderful.
Let's see what we got.
Election results.
Well, we have to go through the presidential ones first.
Oh, okay.
And scroll.
Okay.
I'm scrolling as fast as I can.
I tell you, I'm so glad that we're not having to cover the presidential election.
Yeah, wow.
Gray hair would be sprouting at this point. Gray hair.
Okay, Supervisor District 2, vote for 1. Looks like Liz Alessio's vote total is 2,535. Doris Gentry stands at 750, with 19.48% of the vote counted.
Okay, that's not quite 3 times as much, but close.
Then we'll go on to District 4. For District 4, I see that Amber Manfrey, this one's really close. Amber Manfrey is standing at 1,519, and Pete Mott is standing at 1,329.
That is close.
For about 18% of the vote.
Okay.
And then we move on to District 5. And I need to scroll just a little bit there. Belia Ramos is currently at 932, and Mariam Abudamus at 675.
Oh.
So Belia is the incumbent, remember? And she's currently ahead with 10% of the vote in.
You know what we should have? We should have Jessica sit over there, because our administrator in the office, Jessica Luthi, is a source of information about the elections. She was in newspapers before, and so whenever we had a question, we can just say, Jessica, who was doing that? How big is the population here? And she always knows this stuff. It's great.
The team here is great.
Yeah, we used to have on our board. We have a great board, and on our board we had a woman for many years who had been on many of the boards, had been on councils, had been involved in the city for many years, and it was always great when it came to the election because she knew everything you needed to know about the elections. And so as we got ready for the elections every year, she was our resource to make sure we were finding the right people. And in those days, we would actually go down to the city council, and we would drag all of our equipment, all of our equipment. It would take about 5 or 6 people, and we would set up 3 cameras down there, and we would shoot the whole thing there, and we'd have people come in and interview down there. And it was a huge amount of work. And we actually changed it because of COVID, because of course we couldn't do it with people around, so we decided to do it in the studio. And then Lahni and I ended up doing it because we're husband and wife, as you probably guessed, since we look almost identical, right? Because we were husband and wife, we didn't have to wear masks together. And so we could be in the studio at the same time. So we ended up doing it that year. Also, the 3 other people who were doing it all kind of bailed because of COVID issues. And so we started doing it at that time, and it became so much easier. And then we realized, thanks to Zoom, we could interview people from here easily enough without having to drag all the equipment down to the studio and asking 7 or 8 different volunteers to come down and help us out. And ever since then, we've been doing it from the studio and really enjoying it, and it seems to be working very well. So if you have any commentary about that, please send us your comments. And if you have any criticism, then you can come help work as a volunteer.
Ever the recruiter, aren't you?
Yes. Yes, I love the station. I love the station. I'll tell you, the television station has been the primary source of video training in Napa County for 40 years. And I can't think of any place where you could get the education in video that you can get here for this kind of money. I mean, we charge almost nothing for classes, but you can come in and volunteer because typically we do there's 2 sessions each week when people want to do a show, but they don't want to do the show on location, they want to do a studio show. We have 2 sessions a week where you can come in, you can reserve it, and our director, Justin Bernard, will run the cameras for you, will help you set the whole thing up. You get your table, you get set up, and you can bring your guests in, and they wire you up, and will help you put the show together. It's about an hour slot. The only thing they ask is that for the second show, you stay around and volunteer, which means you get behind the camera, and you put on a headset, and Justin tells you what to do, when to focus, and when to change, and you learn how to use the camera in the process. And when I first got interested in doing this, I would come over every Thursday, and I would volunteer for the 2 shows. And I was a little clumsy at first. I mean, it took a lot of coaching to get me good at it, but after a while, I finally started getting better and better at it, and then I started to learn how to use the board. And then I started doing as a volunteer director for other shows. And over time, I kept building my skill set, and I learned how to use our compact video cameras to go on location, and started doing shows on location. And the first ones were a little rough, but over time I got better and better and better. And it didn't cost me anything other than my membership. What's our family memberships? Like nothing practically. Yeah. And I would go out and I would do my videos, and we would produce them, and I'd come back in and use the programs here. And we have courses in how to use the video programs, Adobe Premiere. You can't get an education like this at this price any place that you can get here on Napa TV. So if you have any interest in doing video of developing your skills, really come in, become a member, do some volunteering, take some of the classes, go out and do some stuff with the video, start developing your skill sets. They will coach you in this. You'll get better and better. You'll suddenly realize, I could have gone to film school for this and spent $100,000, but instead I came here and I got really, really good. So.
And you can too.
Yes.
I'm hoping that they're going to update, but so far I don't see any updates here. We can look at some other things. Mike Thompson looks to be ahead in his race for Congress for representing District 4 with 9,708 votes to John Munn's 3,728 votes.
Okay.
In the state Senate race for the partial term, it looks like Adam Schiff is ahead from the point of view of Napa. 5,382 votes to Steve Garvey is a surprise second, I think, at 3,394 votes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't make these things up. I just read them.
Huh.
I cast my vote and then I read them.
That's surprising.
And then for California State Senate District 3, Rosanna Verder Aliga is slightly ahead with 3,726 votes to Tom Bogue at 3,566 votes.
That's funny, because Tom Bogue, when you listed, everyone listed like who they were endorsed by. He had no one listed.
Well, Christopher Cabaldon is also not too far behind at 3,296. So
interesting.
That really could probably go any way.
Interesting. One thing is about Verder Aliga, that how do you say her name again? Agiga?
I'm sorry. Let me get back to the. She's Verder Aliga.
Verder Aliga.
Yeah.
is that one of the things that was amazing when we started looking at things, she was connected to so many different organizations. I mean, she just has networked absolutely every place.
Should we look at the measures?
Yes, let's look at the measures.
Let's see if we can see these measures. We've got measure
Okay.
D.
D. Oh, okay. Yes, it's 50% and no. For that, measure D, Howell Mountain, which is they want to update their school up there, with improve their music room and such. Is that 50% even each way? It's perfectly even.
Exactly even.
Exactly.
I mean,
even?
I have a total here, 123 to 123.
Really?
So 50% and 50%. Amazing, amazing.
This is what you call a horse
Then
race.
we've got, what's the next one we want to look at? U for Yountville. They should have made that measure Y, right? Yountville.
Yes.
That one stands at, that's a whole different story there.
Yes, 87%.
87% in favor of that measure with the GAN limit.
To 12%.
Yeah, 434
Yeah.
to 63. That's not even,
Right.
not even in the ballpark
See,
there.
Who says your vote doesn't count?
Do we have anything? Well, do we have anything on that measure 1?
Well, measure U.
Measure U,
Oh.
Lake Berryessa.
75% in favor, 25% unfavor. Is 21 to 7?
Is that really all the votes that have been cast
21
for
to
that?
7 for $500,000. See, people have leverage. People forget how much leverage you have. You know, it's very important. It's very important. It's funny, for years they've always said it's the older people who vote. And Lahni and I, of course, are, a little older.
Now, don't you think it's confusing that there's 2 measure U's?
Yes, I think so.
See, make it easy on us, okay?
Yes.
Don't make it hard for us.
So Lahni
And
and I
how
were-
about Proposition 1?
Oh, yes. How's Proposition 1 doing?
Proposition 1, yeses are leading, 7,313 to 6,256. Now, understand, these are the local votes for Proposition 1, and that's a statewide proposition.
Yes.
So, as propositions go, right? Measures
Yes.
are local, propositions are not local, they're statewide. But at least Napa seems to be for it.
Well, the issues of homelessness are epidemic in the state at this point.
And this is a very far-reaching proposition. There's a lot baked into this. And at this point, these problems have just been escalating and building and growing, and people have tried different things, and it's maybe my opinion, but it's time to throw everything you can at it.
Yeah.
Because it just has to be resolved in some way.
I thought it was fascinating that when we got the booklet on it, that talked about who was running for president, who was running for Senate, the statewide booklet, and then the proposition. The president, and there was 16 people running for the Senate. It's a large section. There's about 8 or 9 people running for president. But then the proposition was about 70 or 80 pages long. The entire law was huge. It just covered so many different aspects of it. And at the very beginning, it was fascinating because it talked about how many people, what percentage of Californians have, emotional health issues, how many have addiction issues, how many have, challenges that need this kind of help. And it was very significant. It was a surprisingly large number. I think we live in Napa. Of course, there are issues in Napa, but Napa is not an urban environment by any means. We live in a fairly bucolic environment. And sometimes we get out of touch with these big urban cities like Los Angeles and San Jose, the issues that they have to deal with on a regular basis. Someplace like Oakland, for instance, which is an industrial city, the kind of issues they're dealing with all the time that, as a really a county that lives on agriculture and tourism, we don't really deal with those kinds of issues. Our big issues are DUIs, which immediately we have twice the average of the state.
Wow, I wonder why that is.
I wonder why, yes.
When one lives in wine country.
Yes. And I have to, as a little PSA, I have to say, if you live here and you work in the industry, drive carefully, because a lot of the DUIs that we actually get are not the tourists. It's the locals. It's people who get used to tasting wine all day long, and they get out of touch with how much the alcohol is actually affecting them because they get used to being a little bit looped. And then they go out to dinner in the evening and they have another glass or two of wine, and next thing you know, they've gone over the limit and they don't realize it. And so if you work in the industry, be responsible.
Yeah.
You know, we got one glass of wine a night. I'm tall. I can handle several glasses of wine. But I have one glass of wine when I go out to dinner. One drink. That's my max if I'm going to be driving home. That's my max.
That's another PSA.
Another PSA, but that's something I'm in the tour business. I've
Don't drink
seen
and drive.
more than my share of
You're on it.
accidents. Don't drink and drive.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Hire a driver.
There you go. It doesn't look like we're getting updates on any kind of regular basis. I think that we're not going to update it. I think,
we'll see.
Let me repeat some of these numbers and just recap with the District 2. We can say that it looks like we're going to call it for Liz Alessio for 77% of the vote.
Yep.
And projected winner.
Yeah, 2,535 votes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, interesting little thing about Liz. Years ago, she used to run a balloon company.
Oh, wow.
Yes, she used to run the balloon company.
Wow, that's cool.
She was a concierge at a number of the hotels over the years, and then the hospital needed a concierge. Queen of the Valley needed a concierge. They needed someone to come in that when people were coming in, and they needed someone to help them find a hotel. You know, when you have someone in the hospital, sometimes you need to stay nearby, and so she came in as their concierge, and they realized she was great with people. She's one of the people with tremendous emotional intelligence, and so she became the director of social services and outreach to the community, and that's what then led her into being a councilwoman. And now it looks like there's a fairly good chance she's going to be our supervisor. Yes.
For District 4.
For District 4.
Or District 2.
District 2. Yes.
Sorry.
The other side of town.
District 4.
Yes.
We can see those.
Yes.
We have a projected winner is Amber Manfrey with 53% of the vote.
Yeah.
Only 20% of the votes are in. That's why we're only projecting the winners.
Yes.
And so Peter Mott has 1,329 votes is what I have on my readout that I got from the update from John Tudor's piece.
Yeah. But that's a pretty good lead.
So that's the projection there. And then we'll look at District 5. And it looks like
Belia Ramos. They've been
with
correcting me on that all night long.
59.99%. They're quite close at 932 to 675. You can't really. The other one, the last one, Amber Manfrey and Peter Mott, they were very close in their totals as well. So we'll see, but we could project. If we have to project at the moment, we are going to have to say we'd call it for Belia Ramos.
Well, remember that most of these votes are coming in by mail. Very few people in Napa these days are voting on location. It used to be that in professionals in the field would say, oh, it's raining. Well, Democrats don't go out in the rain, so if it's raining, it's better for Republicans. Or the Republicans vote late in the day, the Dems go out early in the day, and so they would watch the vote in the course of the day because everyone was going to the polls. And if it was working class, well, it was working class Republicans, for instance, they went to work, they went there after work, where the Dems were the professional people, so they took time during the day. So they would watch this stuff. But when it's all by mail, it's a very consistent, it's consistent throughout the entire count.
Well, I hope that vote by mail makes it possible for people who wouldn't be able to vote to be able to vote. And the system is very well policed, if for lack of a better word to say. It was really very well organized, and when you see how the ballots come in and everything, you realize that there's not going to be chances for vote tampering or anything like that. So you have one vote. Are you going to throw it away for whatever. I mean, there's really no way that, I think it's a safer way to vote anyway, and I hope that people have learned over at least the last few elections that it's a very important thing that you do when you go and exercise this right and you vote. It's the only chance that you get to have your say in what's going on around you.
Right.
So
I think
I'm
it's actually
trying to
it's very
refresh,
funny.
but
It's very
I
funny
don't think we're going to get
that we
it.
could vote by mail, but then you and I drive it down to the office.
Well, that's because we have to say hi to all our friends there, you know.
we want to make sure it gets there. So to look at the Senate, at this point, Adam Schiff is at 40%. This is for the full term. Steve Garvey is at 24%. And then for the partial unexpired term, Adam Schiff is at 37%, and Steve Garvey is at 26%. Katie Porter in the first one's at 14%, and in the second one she's at 16%. So it looks like in the, and this is statewide I'm looking at. This is from KQED. I'm looking at statewide. So it looks like in the main election it will be a Democrat and a Republican. It will be Adam Schiff and Steve Garvey. Adam Schiff, of course, is a current congressman. Steve Garvey is a retired baseball player. But this is the first office he's ever run for, which is really kind of swinging for the fences a little bit, don't you think? I mean, running for Senate.
Oh, you with the baseball metaphors,
yeah, right? Yeah, give me the sports metaphors. Love that stuff.
Wow. He's not the biggest sports guy.
But I love the good sports metaphors. So, but they're not reporting on the. They're not reporting.
Well,
on
here
the,
I've got to. If I scroll up on here, I get to see the federal, everything that's going on.
They're not reporting on the
But
proposition statewide.
They're not updated.
Yeah.
Right.
Be interesting. But I'll tell you, if Napa's running, if Napa's voting for it, that's actually a good indicator. You know.
Well,
Napa's is kind of middle.
Cross our fingers that other people think like Napans.
Napa's kind of middle of the road in many ways.
We are a surprising melting pot.
Yes.
We are. We really have a diverse community here.
What's funny is that we have a higher percentage of Spanish-speaking people than a lot of the state, because so many of our vineyard workers, so many people who run our vineyards, are families that came up from Mexico sometimes 2 to 3 generations ago.
Right.
And Spanish has remained one of the languages. In fact, one of the things
But we have so many other representations here as well.
One of the things we were actually able to do recently was to start having on the TV station translation through subtitles. Recently, we were able to do that for the city councils. And captioning for subtitles into Spanish, which is something we were able to put in for the station very recently and for the meetings, which is really significant because, you know, just because English is not your first language doesn't mean that the things that are going on doesn't matter to you, and probably matters to you more.
Well, and learning a language stretches you in so many ways. And of course, if you want to protect your brain from Alzheimer's, you want to learn another language.
Yes. Now remember, this was just the primary. Now, admittedly, it's a big one for us because we're going to have 3 new supervisors. So for us, it is one of the big elections. But there's another one coming up in November. And you want to, you know, follow what's going on. And we're going to be having coverage for that. I imagine it's going to be Lahni and myself again.
And if you know anybody who should have voted this time and they didn't because it was just a primary and just a small election for us here, please exert whatever influence you have and exhort them to use their constitutional right and have their say.
Right, exactly. So remember, we're going to be doing
get this
it
wonderful "I voted" sticker.
Yes, and our coverage and the coverage we do for the main election is extensive because remember at that time it is in the elections up valley in the various different towns. You know, mayors and such, we will cover them at the same time. And watch the station beforehand because we will be running PSAs from the candidates beforehand. So this is your chance to see them, hear them, get their ideas, get a feeling for whether or not you feel that they're going to do a good job for you. Remember, they work for you.
And it's important to do the research and find out as much as you can about them before you vote.
Right. After all, you know, that when people are running to be supervisor, they're going to get paid to do that. This is not from the goodness of their heart. They're good people, but they do get paid to do that, and it's coming from your tax dollars. So you want to make sure you're going to hire the right people. And one of the ways you can do that is by watching these PSAs on Channel 28 following them, seeing what you think about them, read the articles in the paper, check their statement. They have their statements online on the county. They'll have the candidate statements saying what do they want to accomplish and who they are.
And hopefully you'll just add Channel 28, your local station, into your TV watching lineup. There's some very interesting shows created by local producers, and you never know what you might learn.
Yes. And then we also pull other shows from the PEG network. There's a large PEG network. It's called the PEG network. It's about 2,000 stations across the country. And they all contribute shows up into there, and other stations can download them. So we have a great lineup of shows that come from other PEG stations. And there's and people have favorites that they really like. There's certain shows that we watch. Sometimes I think their shows might be a little bit better than ours sometimes, and I'm a little worried about that. But, this is how you learn. You watch what other people are doing. But, you really have some good coverage. And also remember, we run the informational slides. So if you run a nonprofit organization, you run an organization, you want to get the word out about it, the station will create a slide for you and run it in our slideshows that run in between the shows. And I've found a lot of very helpful things in our slideshows over the years. In fact, that's how I found out about the station.
Right, that was a long time ago. We've been members here for a long time.
Yes. We've been producing our Wine Country at Work show for over 12 years.
12 years.
Amazing. So, has anything updated recently?
No, I don't think we're going to get any more updates.
No more updates?
They're not going to update anything. So you got what you got.
You got what you got.
And let's hope the results hold, or if your person didn't, and it looks like we may have a all-woman
yes.
supervisor board.
Yes.
So that will be history-making.
It's a very interesting thing. There was actually studies done among big corporations in which they found out that large companies that were run by women were typically more profitable and had longer endurance than companies that were run by men. And they came to the conclusion that part of the reason was that the women networked well. They were good team members. But the other part of it was they were a little bit more risk adverse. They were less willing to kind of bet everything on a single thing. They were more willing to kind of navigate, a little more careful, more willing to kind of grow on a gradual basis. And as a result, the businesses tended to be more profitable. It's interesting. I remember when Mondavi became part of Constellation, he was taken over by Constellation, they brought a different team in, and the head winemaker at the time was a woman, and she brought together a fantastic team, and the wines have been consistently good. They were good before, of course, but they've been consistently good, even with different management, because they're team builders and they're a little more risk adverse. They're less willing to say, oh, let's try this and see what happens, which, of course, as we know, men will do. So maybe having a group of women as our county supervisors could give us some good results, don't you think?
Well, there's a lot of give and take on both sides, and I think that it's their turn. Yes. Well, between the city of Napa having almost an entire woman board except for Scott Sedgley, who's our mayor, and now having an entire city supervisor team of women in the valley, this is really getting to be a bit of I don't want to say the girls' club, but definitely possibly a women's club. What do you think about that? I think you should run. I don't do enough?
They're apparently electing women.
Okay. All right. I think we're going off the rails here a little bit. We are so happy to have spent this time with you tonight. We hope that you enjoyed the coverage and follow up with any other updates that might come through the Board of Elections later on today after we go off the air. But we appreciate your viewing, and think about your resources that are available to you here at Napa TV, and we want to thank everybody here. We want to thank Jessica and Justin and James and everybody that makes all this possible, and we'll see you at the next election.
But remember, before we go, one more thing. We want to thank all the people who ran. It's a huge effort.
It's true.
To do this kind of public service, and we want to congratulate the winners, and we want to console the losers, but thank you all. Thank you all.